Qulture is brought to you in part thanks to the Miriam Aaron Rowland Canadian Content Fund, helping Vermont PBS increase its commitment to Canadian and cross-border programming.
There's so much going on in Montreal.
We're supporting independent artists who are kind of doing it on their own.
There's like a million shows happening.
POP Montreal is very much connected to the underground arts community in Montreal.
Today we're going to shoot with Kandle.
Yeah, that's good.
John makes sure every shot is perfect.
When I would go to punk shows, there would be majorly men performing, men in the audience. So that was something that I wanted to change.
You can come here and kind of create your own artistic self.
Well, Arcade Fire, this is where they used to live.
It's just a land of boundless possibilities.
Qulture.
Qulture. Qulture. Culture.
Okay, hey guys, how's it going? My name is Steve. I'm going to be your guide today. I want to welcome you to the POP Montreal Fits and Falwell tour of the Mile End District. We're going to talk about the musical history of the neighborhood. We're going to talk about the artistic history of the neighborhood. We do have over 2,200 cultural or ethnic groups in Montreal. It kind of influences our cultural scene, our nightlife, our music scene as well. We are on the POP Montreal tour. So, what is POP Montreal?
POP Montreal pulls the whole city together.
It's the funnest weekend of the year in Montreal.
POP Montreal is a music festival primarily. It's a 5-day event that runs in September annually. We're going into our 14th year. We're supporting independent artists who are kind of doing it on their own without a ton of assistance from bigger labels or bigger corporate interests. So that's kind of the idea behind it.
Thank you.
I think a lot of the other big festivals, they book the same, more established, buzzier bands.
POP Montreal, it's a big festival, but it still has a bit of an indie feel to it. It gives a showcase for a lot of up-and-coming, unknown bands and puts them together with really big names. So it's really great for developing new talent.
Everyone goes to all the venues.
Just wander into any random bar and there could be some little band and a small crowd and you could really discover something new.
So it's really easy to just hop on your bike and jump around from place to place.
There's like a million shows happening.
And you just run into people that you know and just like, hey, what have you seen tonight? Oh, that's great, where are you going next? And it's just a really fun community, positive experience for artists and fans alike. You have indie rock, you have electronic music, you have like what we're hearing now, which is like international kind of jazz. You really have a really mixed bag of just about every kind of music. There's something for everybody.
We are very much connected to the underground arts community in Montreal, probably more so than pretty much any other festival. I think it's just a matter of keeping connected with the artists who are emerging and, continuing to collaborate with the established artists who want to keep challenging their audiences. And we've had all kinds of weird stuff, like we did a charity basketball game, Pop vs. Jock, spearheaded by Win Butler from the Arcade Fire in support of a local youth organization. Had like a mini bike tour with Kid Koala, a local DJ who approached me about the idea of doing this bike and food tour of various locations in the neighborhood, and he'd do like mini headphone performances, so that was pretty great.
So nice to be out here on the turntable where I belong.
Well, there's always stuff like that, you know, that kind of pop out of nowhere. Just like artists have cool ideas. In that sense, pop is like a facilitator of ideas. We can go out and help make cool things happen.
It's not just about music, it's about really everything that's connected to the cultural, creative communities.
Welcome everybody to this very quick and dirty tour of Art Pop at POP Montreal.
There's a large program of arts.
So to start with, this installation by Eleni Bagaki. This is Annie Aimant-Hott. She's really taking painting to also another kind of language.
There's the Pousse Pop Festival, which is a craft and artisan market. There's a big fashion show with emerging talent.
Last year, we started the Marché des Possibles, which is an outdoor open-air market / beer garden performance space in the Myland, and it happens 8 weeks in the summer, July and August. This year, we decided to put on mini walking tours.
Are you guys ready to go? Yeah, let's do it. All right, cool.
And you go around the neighborhood and see an art studio and then end the night at a concert. It's like more of an underground, cool emphasis on a walking tour.
So these are actually a lot of big warehouses that are right here in this part of the Myland. All of them used to be these big kind of textile warehouses, but in the 1970s, because of the Asian competition, they all became empty, right? So that whole industry just collapsed. So artists moved into these kind of big warehouses because there was a lot of big space, a lot of really nice light views over the mountain, over the city, and cheap rent. The developer back then, he wanted to make condos out of these old warehouses to raise the rent. So the artists, they formed this organization called Le Regroupement Pied Carré, or in English called the Square Foot Organization. And basically they're trying to advocate to keep cheaper rent here to allow the artists that live in the neighborhood right here to work in the same neighborhood that they live in. They've been actually pretty successful because they lobby the city, and the owner of this building is a little open-minded. He said, you know what, if I can get a big block of artists renting out most of my building for a lower rent, then it actually works out for me, right? So he struck a deal with them, and thanks to that deal, there's a lot of artists that are here in this neighborhood that pay cheap rent. So we actually have the highest concentration of artists out of any neighborhood in Canada, 8 times more than the average Canadian neighborhood. We're actually going to go walk into this building right here. We're going to visit one of the most prominent artists in the neighborhood of Myland. His name is John Londono, a great photographer. I'm going to check out his work. Sound good? All right, let's do that. Yeah, all right. Salut. Enchanté. Ouais.
Consulat, or consulate, I guess in English, is the association of 7 photographers. Some in commercial photography, some in editorial, fashion, food photography, lifestyle, that decided to bring their energies together, to have their own producers, their own studios, and to get rid of the structure of having an agent. We knew each other's work and we all had a lot of respect for each other. So you can see other of my partners. Here's Maxime. Maxime is mainly a fashion photographer. Guillaume is an artist, mainly an artist, but also doing a lot of lifestyle. You see a lot of photography in the city that's being done by photographers here. The POP Montreal tour, I always say yes to things like that. You're making their day different, you know, they get an insider look on what's going on in the Myland at this address. I was born in Venezuela, and my parents are Colombian, and I grew up in the countryside of Montreal. When I was in school, I was really influenced by all the photography that I could see around me. And at the time, like cultural newspapers and magazines were everywhere in the city. And at the time, the music scene was getting really popular in Montreal. And a lot of the international press was giving importance to Montreal because of bands like Arcade Fire. And just before that, the Deers. It was just a wave that was going through Montreal, and it brought me in it with my photography. I became part of that scene, you know, like being a photographer that did a lot of artists and started to work also with international magazines where they needed images of artists here. So after a few years, artists started to know who I was and to know my images. So I was very, very lucky to have a good reputation within that milieu. So since then, you know, artists that come to me for photos really trust me. I'm trying to reach out to bands that I like that come through Montreal, and we shoot a very, very short session with them. So usually it's backstage or on their tour bus, or like we did Grimes lately just before the Lana Del Rey show, and it was in the underground parking of the Bell Center. So it's always like I have to improvise with the spots where I'm meeting them. So yesterday I met with Future Island in the backstage of Oshiaga. Future Island is an American band. They're getting quite famous right now, and they were one of the main acts. Like to be honest, like this looks like a studio shot, but the background is actually the toilets of the backstage. I don't really guide them. Like the best example is the last shot I did of Sam. It's probably the best. It's the last shot that I shot of him. He just went like, I always look really mad on pictures, so I'm just gonna give you one of those. And since shooting bands or artists like that are usually like 15 minutes, you really have to know what you're doing. Just went, okay, this is the shot, and I literally didn't shoot anything else after that. That was it, you know? Yeah.
Also the light.
No, it's great. I'm really happy. Maybe just hold it here. You have to push on it. Today we're gonna shoot with Kandle. Kandle is a musician, and she's originally from BC. She moved to Montreal a few years ago. We met through videos and through fashion shoots that we did together. She just needs press shots with her band. It's gonna be a short and sweet shoot with them today. So j'aime beaucoup ça. I really like that. That's exactly what we're gonna get. I think this is a great inspiration. Music photography is really interesting because I'm trying to answer to something that already exists and to be part of music history, while trying to find a new way of making this, this imagery. I know that Kandle likes 60s culture, and I like Velvet Underground, and they were a band with a girl just like her, so it was really my main inspiration, but then the photo is a mix of who I am, mix of who they are, and the inspiration that we have. How are you? Good morning. How are you? I'm good. Toi? Laetitia is going to take care of your hair. Brigitte, tu la connais? C'est que du maquillage.
I wanted to look like Bram Stoker's Dracula.
Because I thought of you this morning. I have this like pink rabbit suit.
No.
And I wanted to do a joke, but I was just
Bram
lazy.
Stoker's Dracula, not pink bunny suit.
They don't fit me anymore, so I gave them to Kandle.
Oh, this is so nice of you.
Yeah. Saying what kind of photographer I am is also talk about who I am. And the leather jacket is cool. When I do shootings with people, I never speak very loudly, so I don't put on a show. I'm really sensitive to people's energy, making sure that they are comfortable, that they feel that they're in good hands.
Is it going to be from the waist up like that?
I think so.
Awesome. So I can wear my flip-flops.
You can be naked. And I think that like when you start a shooting, you never know where you're going. You're like, okay, is this going to happen? And you have like now we have an inspiration for Velvet Underground. It could be like completely different. So what did you want exactly, Sam?
What did I want exactly with my hair?
Yeah.
I don't know. I just noticed that everyone had their hair slicked back, so I thought maybe we'd go more Jesus and Mary chain. Like I go high.
Oh yeah, okay. But you have to be open to make it different if it brings you there. Let's go, guys. Let's try a shot just to see how it looks. I'll put it on the computer. So let's see how you guys are gonna place yourself organically. And fais juste monter ta fly, David. Okay.
Do we look like a band?
I think you just look like a band. Yeah, nice reflections on this dress. I really just try to let them be what they are in that moment. Actually, Sam, that was good. Like to be just looking over your shoulder. So I'm not trying to guide them into into a specific state of mind. And at the end of the shoot, I have the feeling that I've been like a yoga teacher. Because all I tell them is like, breathe.
Respire, David, respire.
You know, relax your shoulders, you know, put your spine straight.
Come straight.
Things like that. So it's really just to be self-conscious of their body and the tensions and be like, just abandon themselves in that moment.
Yeah, like you look stoned.
Yeah, that's good.
Sometimes I feel that I'm too much in control and I just want to find that special shot that I can't reproduce, you know? Because sometimes you can have 100 images that look the same. The differences between each of the images is so small, but we're trying to find the one that will look the best.
Yeah, dude! In excess. Yeah, totally.
That's Brian Adams. This is gonna sell a lot of albums.
Yeah, of course.
That's cool.
Look at the camera, Sam. Yeah. Chin down.
Everything he does ends up looking amazing, and you just trust him and whatever he does.
That's kind of cool.
I think a big part of it is confidence. You know, if you're shooting with a photographer, it's like, oh, I don't know, and they're not focused on how the people actually look. They're just focused on the lighting.
But you were touching, so let's do this again and get the right stuff.
To make a photo work with a band, especially, like there's a lot of components to it, and everyone has to like the way they look, and everything has to be flattering.
Some like toothpicks to hold my eyes open.
Look at that. It's like.
Is everyone like that?
Just you.
I just gotta. I'll do one like this, a couple like this.
John notices every little detail and makes sure that it works and makes sure everyone's happy. It's kind of funny when you look so good that people are like, is that even you? Hey, yeah, thanks a lot. He makes sure every shot is perfect and he won't settle for less than perfect.
For me, it's more creative and friendship and being part of that scene than really just doing this for a living. For a living, I do like DOP, I do commercial work. A great photography is the one that creates an emotion and that you have the feeling that you can't reproduce this. I would like people to see anything but the actual photograph or the actual making of that photograph. If this image can transport you elsewhere than in this studio or in that time frame, then I think my work is good, you know.
All right, you guys see this building right here, right? It's a really cool symbol for the Milan because it represents all the kind of the different communities that came through here. Right, so if you guys see actually at the top of the windows there, they have kind of like a stylized shamrock. So even though it's a Greek style, it has that Irish symbol. So Greek, kind of more Orthodox, but for the Irish Catholic community. You see the kind of the doors to the basement right there, right? That basement is now used by a lot of bands, a lot of artists. They're going to do shows over there. Arcade Fire actually did their second album launch at the basement of this church. Now we're going to see where Arcade Fire lived. We're actually right here, we're on Bernard Street, right? The next street down, that's Arcade Street. So there used to be a rumor that said that, well, Arcade Fire, before they kind of like gave a name to the band, they lived on Arcade Street and they could see the sign for the street, Arcade, right in front of their window. So the whole theory went that like, well, they were the fire on Arcade Street, so actually that's how they got the name of Arcade Fire. But that's not true. He had his name for Arcade Fire back when he was a little kid. That little thing on the sidewalk, it's a little faded now. This is like over 10 years old, and this is where they used to live. So we were in the Milan before, right? Milan has kind of been cool and happening for like the last 10 years, maybe a little more. But now we've crossed over into kind of the new neighborhood where things are starting to happen. The part more specifically where we're going to be is La Petite Patrie. Record store, by the way, called Death of Vinyl. They have all sorts of different things from the 50s until now as well. There's some cool art here done by a local Montreal artist called Chris Dyer. So he's got his art all around the city. Good music, good street art, just a great place in the neighborhood. Cool. So this is one of the main strips of kind of the new up-and-coming neighborhood that I was telling you guys about. Further down here, we have kind of some older community bars that have started to be used by a lot of local bands and artists to just kind of showcase their music. This right here is called Notre Dame des Quilles, kind of roughly translated as Our Lady of Pins. So there's bowling. Right here, there's a bar. There's also like a vegan burrito place. So We're gonna go inside, we're gonna have a vegan burrito and probably a drink.
Cheers!
Cheers.
To POP Montréal!
Yeah. What is your favorite part of the tour so far?
The art studio with the photograph. I've never seen a studio like that before.
I'm here in this neighborhood for the first time, so I'm really surprised that this area is so cute and beautiful.
Alright guys, so welcome to Let's Go Grif. This is a local kind of punk rock bar here on this side of town in Montreal. We're going to see some really good bands, Senzafine and Hellenica. Helenica's from Montreal, so the local scene are represented here. I hope you guys had a good time on the tour. This is where we're going to stop off, this is where we're going to see some music, and that's it, alright? Thanks so much for being with me.
Thank you.
I discovered Hellenica kind of like a showcase at a regular venue, and it was the focus was on experimental bands. I've always been into heavy music, and I felt like they were underrepresented.
Personally, I've always felt when I would go to punk shows, there would be this really aggressive energy. Which is part of the show, but just the fact that it was majorly men performing, men in the audience, I would not necessarily go by myself because I wouldn't feel as safe.
No one will ever hurt you, I guarantee. Just wait and see.
So I asked Bianca if she would be down to start this promotion company with me. Push and Shove is trying to promote gender equality in the punk rock music scene. So we just try to have more female represented in our lineups, more people from the LGBT community as well. So we try to round that up. It's not always super easy, but this is our focus as a company.
I don't know what is real. Let's go. Not that I'm back, yeah. Good times.
When I started playing about 10 years ago, there weren't many females. Every time I'd show up to a gig and see a girl that's in the band, I would always be really happy, like, oh, okay, there's another girl. I was stoked and surprised. But now more and more often, there are a lot of girls, and promoters are realizing that there's more girls in the rock scene. It's like an empowering feeling to see more ladies doing like things that it was only for the boys. I think for a young girl who's starting out to do shows, I think that could be really a good plus to have a female promoter.
I find myself being the only female, and when we play shows and stuff like that, it's often just me, even in the crowd. Nice to meet you.
Hi, I'm Frank.
Two female promoters, it's pretty rare. There's a lot more males in this business.
Great. Debbie and Bianca, who are the two girls, they are like really powerful women, and they both really know what they're doing, and they work really, really hard. And so it's really nice and refreshing to see women especially going out into the musical community and discovering things, because oftentimes you would be shut down.
I blew out my soul and I busted my knee. The things in my head are trying to set me free.
We are from Belfast, Maine. Not many people know about us really, and there's not a whole lot of promotion. It is really cool to see a group of promoters looking outside of their comfort zone for, like, because I think that to find us and bring us here is kind of a going out of on a limb.
Thank you to everybody who came out to see the show.
We're presenting a show during POP Montreal that's all super heavy bands, but there are females in all the bands. And I find that it really changes the vibe of the event, and it makes it more welcoming to everyone.
And I met her at a meet and greet. She said that she'd be so sweet.
It will be a year now during Pop Montreal because this is where it all started. It's been going fairly well. What I find is difficult is that the city is saturated with shows and with concerts and music, and it's great, but
like even on a Tuesday night you can find 10 shows. So it's really exposure and like alerting people to the fact that the show is happening.
Unfortunately, it's not so much about music anymore. Like a couple people will show up for what this is because they really want to see the band.
We're called The Lookout.
We're Jim Dandy. Thank you, we were Fight Face.
But a lot of people will also just like follow their friends and, oh, we're going in for a drink, so this band's playing, I don't mind playing the cover charge. It really comes down to that, as sad as it seems. I do take pride in being part of a performance and just helping promote those artists. It doesn't matter if I don't make money. I want to invest my time and I want to help promote those bands. We're happy at the end of the night if we're able to pay our bands a good amount of money. Yeah. And if we can't, that makes us so sad. That's the only thing we care about. Yeah. We have paid bands out of our pocket before.
But pop, usually the turnout is pretty good. Like last year, we had shows at another venue on Saint Laurent where the foot traffic is a little better. Here, I expect it to be pretty good. I don't care. As long as bands don't have to play to an empty room, like, I don't mind. If there's like 20 and it looks full, that's nice. If there's 20 and it looks empty, that's not so good.
It's all in your head, yeah! Your head! It's all in your head!
Let's face it, it's fun to play to an empty room, but it's more fun to play to a not empty room. So I think promotion is the hugest part of it as far as advantage for us. And if we know that we're working with a good promoter, then we feel confident that we're, you know, at least gonna have like 10 people minimum, even on an off night.
They invest so much time and energy and money into making their music. Like, they shouldn't really have to book their own shows as well. It's just like an added stress and an added workload. So I feel like, well, you know, if I can do that for them, that would be cool, and I'll learn something and they'll learn something. And
I feel once they recognize all the hard work we're putting into this, that we're behind them and that we're not there to screw them over.
And everything's going to be taken care of, and they just have to show up and play and really focus on just giving a good performance.
I've never worked with a female promoter so far. This is my first show being booked and organized by an all-female production group. I have to say, like, I'm really enjoying it. Like, they really seem to put a lot of thought into blending the right set list. Like, the bands are all different, but they all really correspond well. And there was none of that sort of barrier that sometimes you can feel. Like, not many people here know my band, not many people have heard us play before, but it was very welcoming, actually.
I do discover more and more bands the more that I do this, and that's amazing. As someone, I've always been really, really into music, but like, I always felt kind of like an outsider because I don't play music. So for me, it's a way for like to be involved in the scene beyond as an audience member.
Qulture is brought to you in part thanks to the Miriam Aaron Rowland Canadian Content Fund, helping Vermont PBS increase its commitment to Canadian and cross-border programming.
Thank you.